Hey, what is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you're new here. My name is Ivy, and today we are going to be going over the 12 slash 14 books that I read in the month of March. I'm not huge on stats, but I do like to give some. So 4 of these were from my physical TBR, which you guys know is not really good. I really want to work on my physical TBR this year. It's huge, but I just found that in the months of January and February, I was kind of forcing myself to read anything from my physical TBR, and I ended up unhauling the vast majority of books that I read from my physical TBR in January and February because I just didn't like them. And it I was reading such a heavy quantity of books, but I wasn't really enjoying anything that I was reading. So this month I just kind of took the pressure off of getting through my physical TBR and just kind of let myself read whatever I wanted. So I only read 4 off of my physical TBR. I read 7 from my library, and then 2 were from audiobooks that were not library books. So one was from Audible and the other one was from Everland, something like that. I used a free trial for both of those, and I actually really want to do a video completely about audiobooks, where to listen to audiobooks, different type of audiobook companies. So I wanted to try out Everland, so stay tuned for that video. I'm very excited to film that video. You guys know I love audiobooks. And then the genre breakdown is 1 thriller, 1 fantasy, 1 autobiography / nonfiction, 2 science fiction, 2 contemporary fiction, 3 literary fiction, and 3 romance. So a pretty solid variety. Honestly, when I was looking back and keeping going through my stats and stuff, I was so surprised by what I read at the beginning of this month because it just feels so long ago. But the first book I read this month is The Last Mrs. Parish by Liv Constantine. This follows, I believe, a pretty similar plot to The Housemaid. I've heard kind of rumblings that The Housemaid is a little bit of a copycat of this, and I wanted to give this a chance and then see if I wanted to watch The Housemaid movie. We're following Amber, who we can tell kind of right off the bat is maybe not the best person. She kind of gives Joe from You vibes a little bit, and she's infiltrating this girl named Daphne's life, and we're not really sure why. We're not really sure what's going on with Amber, and that's just kind of where our story starts. I will say the first half of this book I loved. I also thought that the audiobook, specifically Amber's part in the book, was really good because the narrator switched her inflection so strongly for Amber's inner dialogue versus how she was speaking in real life, or how she was speaking aloud, and it really just emphasized how much she was pretending and kind of putting on a show for people, and it was just so different from who she really is, which I did really like. However, around the 50 to 60% mark, we switch POVs and we kind of switch where the story's going and kind of get a different side of the story. And I just really did not enjoy that part. This book was just a little bit too graphic for me, and I was just coming off of 2 nonfiction books that have to do with being exploited and being abused, and just seeing so many parallels in this to the nonfiction books that I had just read just really kind of icked me out. I just don't want to read about people being tortured for entertainment. It's just not my thing, and it was just a little bit too graphic for me, and a little bit too I wish we would have faded to black a little bit more and not gotten so much in your face graphicness about it. So while I did really enjoy the first half of this, I don't know, I don't think I would recommend it. I'm definitely gonna unhaul it. It just made me feel very icky, if I'm being totally honest. Then I read Give Me Butterflies by Jillian Meadows. This I really, really enjoyed. We're following 2 characters who both work at the same museum. One of them is a paleontologist, and then the other one, I can't remember the word, but it's for bugs. She's basically in charge of bugs. And they're kind of frenemies, kind of enemies. I think I rated this 4.5 on Fable. It's probably closer to a 4 now, but I honestly really did enjoy it. I think that if you like Ali Hazelwood, you would really like this. There's the STEM and work aspect of it really reminded me of Ali Hazelwood, and then it's also pretty spicy, a little bit too spicy for me, but I would just kind of like skim past it or skip through if I was just kind of over the spice. But I think if like Allie Hazelwood level of spice is like what you kind of like to stick to, I think this one is a really good pick. I also feel like I never hear anything about this author, so maybe you can find a new author that you really like. There's also, I don't want to give too much away, but each of our characters are kind of going through something pretty like serious in this book, and I just really like when there's like added elements of real life in romance books that aren't necessarily like, neither one of them were depressing. I feel like I'd read so many depressing books this year, and neither one of them, like they had sad elements to them, but they were also like hopeful, and like we got to see the characters grow through it and kind of make the best of it, which I really, really enjoyed. It reminded me a lot of kind of like Abby Jimenez or Annabelle Monaghan, where the overall story is light, but like there is maybe some more serious topics kind of engraved in them. But overall, I think this is a really, really solid romance. I feel like I don't really hear that many people talk about it. It also gives great spring vibes, and there is a companion novel about our main character's sister that just came out in March called No Place Like You, which also seems to have really good spring vibes. I haven't read that one yet, but I would like to. So if you're looking for like a new romance author, I would really, really suggest Give Me Butterflies. Then I read everyone and their mother's favorite book. I think I've like over brightened myself. I feel like you can't really see this. This is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. In this, we are following our main character, Sybil, who is an older woman. She lives alone. She kind of is like in that retirement phase of her life where all of her days kind of look the same, and she loves reading and writing letters. She writes a letter almost every single day to just like anybody, to her daughter, her best friend. There's this little boy that she has like a correspondent with. She'll write to like the head of an institution, like a university. She'll really write to anybody. We kind of start and we know that she's losing her vision pretty quickly, and it's kind of exploring her life, what kind of life she lived, what kind of impact she had on people, good or bad, what things she went through in life, and then also her future, kind of coming to terms with the fact that she might not be able to write letters, which she's found like a lot of solace in throughout her life. Overall, I think that this is a great book. I think this might have just been a little bit of a victim of my expectations. It's not that I didn't like it. I honestly really did. And every time I think back to reading it, like I remember having a really good time and being really fond of it. I just think that so many people were like, this is the best book ever, that I thought it was gonna like change my life. And it was a great book, and I would probably recommend this to anybody. Like I do think that this is a book that like you, your mom, or your grandma could enjoy. Like everybody could get something from it. I just think I thought it was going to change my life, and it didn't. But overall, like I don't want that to come off as sounding like I didn't like it, because I really, really did. I really enjoyed my time with it, and I really did like it, and I would definitely 100% recommend. Okay, the next book that I read might be my favorite of the month. I honestly kind of have a hard time picking my favorite of the month. I feel like I read a lot of really good books this month, but Margo's Got Money Troubles was such a good time. I 100% think that this is one of those books that is just better on audio. Every time I would pick up the book to read it with my eyes, I was like, this is not as like humorous as the audiobook is. Like the audiobook was just so funny. It's narrated by Elle Fanning, who's going to be playing Margo in the Apple TV series, which I believe comes out on like April 14th. And she just portrays Margo in such a funny way. I feel like she delivers every line so well and makes you feel so connected to Margo. And I just absolutely loved it. I would really recommend seeing if your library has this audiobook. It was so good. It's also a really quick read. We're following Margo, who I believe is 19 or 20, and she ends up getting pregnant with her professor's baby. Doesn't have any money, doesn't have anybody to really help her, basically like doesn't know how to sustain herself or her kid's life. So she ends up starting an OnlyFans. We just kind of follow her through this journey, kind of navigating what it's like to become a mom, navigating like the relationships with her parents and how she kind of changes her views about them since becoming a parent. It's honestly such a good story. I absolutely loved it. Every time I think about it, I feel like I remember more that I liked about it, and I think it's an absolute must read before the TV show comes out if you have time. It is such a stellar book. It's so good. Then I read Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices series. We're following this girl named Tessa, who is just a regular, ordinary girl from America, and I believe like her aunt has recently passed away and her brother moved to London for work, and we start out where her brother sends for her and she's gonna go move to London with him to be with him. I think when she's like getting off the boat or something, she ends up being picked up by these two women who I believe they say they like have her brother or something, but she ends up going off with these two women. These two women are not to be trusted. They basically tell her that she has this power and kind of lock her up to try to figure out how to use this power, how it can kind of help them, and she gets thrown into this like Shadowhunters universe. This I did really enjoy. I just think again, I have such an issue with having way too high of expectations for things. I just feel like everyone says that this series is so much better than the Mortal Instruments series, and I personally eat the Mortal Instruments books up. Like, I can't help it. I think they're so much fun. I just think that I was expecting like something amazing from this, and I really didn't think it was like much better than the Immortal Instruments. I also think that that might just be because I have spent a lot more time with the characters in the Immortal Instruments versus the Infernal Devices. The other book I wanted to mention was Clockwork Prince, because that was on my March TBR and I did read a big chunk of that in March. I just didn't have time to finish it, and I definitely do think that as I kind of stick with the characters, I am liking it more. I just don't know, like, I would love to know like other people's opinions. I feel like I have never heard anyone say that they liked the Immortal Instruments better than the Infernal Devices, but like I think I might be an Immortal Instruments girly. I don't know. I feel like I just really thought I was gonna love Will Herringdale. Everybody always talks about him, and I just thought he was like kind of annoying and kind of a copycat of Jace. Yeah, I don't know. I would love to know other people's opinions. I feel like this is a series and a world that a lot of people are familiar with, so I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on the Infernal Devices, but no spoilers because I have not finished the series yet. Then I actually listened to the audiobook for Semi Well Adjusted Despite Literally Everything. This is by Allison Stoner, who was a Disney kid. She was on Camp Rock. She was in a really famous music video, which now I'm like, oh, work it. I was like, why can I not think of what this song is? She was in Cheaper by the Dozen. She had a pretty solid career for a childhood actor. This is her memoir of what it was like to grow up in that world, that kind of thing. Honestly, I'm just gonna like go outright and say it that I would not recommend this memoir. I don't think it's honestly just like a very good one. If you were a super big fan of Allison Stoner, I feel like then it's kind of different. Like, you know, you care a little bit more when you really care about the celebrity. Not that I wasn't a fan of her. I watched so much stuff that she was in, but she was never like my favorite ever. And I just think that the voice that this book took was not my favorite. I don't know. I just felt like there was a lot of victim mentality, a lot of like not being able to recognize your privilege and having like no empathy for others. It just really wasn't my favorite. I just really didn't love like the overall voice that the book had. I will say that she is a really good audiobook narrator. The only thing that got me is in her younger years, she uses like a baby voice to talk, and it sounds exactly like Joey King from The Act, and I just could not picture a little kid. All I could picture was Joey King from The Act. The one thing I did really enjoy her perspective on is she talks a lot about her coping mechanisms that she used to kind of deal with the life that she was living, and one of them was getting really heavily invested into religion, which I think is a really interesting thing to kind of go through when it comes to like people in Hollywood. I feel like you don't see that very often. So that I did really like, but overall, I just think that unless she is someone that you are like very invested in, there's just a lot more enticing memoirs out there than this one. Then I read Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy, which I didn't realize I read these back to back. It's kind of funny because obviously Jeanette McCurdy was a Nickelodeon kid, and this is her first fiction novel. We are following Waldo, who I believe is like 17 or 18, and she gets into a relationship with her professor, and we kind of just see her living out her last year or so of high school, navigating her relationship with her mom, her relationship with this guy, kind of the obsessions. Like, she has a very obsessive personality, so one of like the obsessions that we kind of navigate through this story is a shopping addiction, which I really honestly did enjoy. I will say I think this is just like a maybe rec. I feel like I can't really say one way or another whether or not I would recommend it. I heard a lot of people describe this book as disturbing, which I didn't personally think it was disturbing. I feel like I've read more disturbing books with this kind of like narrative of like the student and the professor and an unequal balance and like relationships. I will say though, I think where people are coming from with that critique is that she has a very harsh way of writing. She does not leave anything to the imagination. She just like flat out tells you. So it can kind of just like make you feel uncomfortable. I do think that's the purpose of the way that she writes, but it does definitely just feel a little bit like, ugh. So if you do want to give this book a read, whether because you love Jeanette McCurdy or you just want to read something like this, I would recommend maybe having like a fun, happy little book to go alongside it, because it does just kind of make you feel like a little bit like icked out at times. Then I finally read The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. This has been on my TBR for so long. I have wanted to read this book for so long, and I finally just decided that this was the month I was gonna pick it up. We're following our main character Lucy, who's a teacher's aide, and she has this really close relationship with this little boy named Christopher, who she would really like to adopt or foster to adopt, but she just does not live the type of lifestyle that she can do that. She just doesn't have the money or the resources to be able to do that, unfortunately. And her and Christopher kind of bond over this really famous book series. Our story starts with the author of this book series kind of holding like a Willy Wonka type competition for people who like really love the series on his island, and whoever wins gets the copyright rights to his last and final book. They basically have like free range. They can kind of do whatever they want with this book once they win, and obviously like this is going to be worth a lot of money. So Lucy thinks that this is kind of like her chance to turn her life around and to finally have the chance to adopt or foster Christopher. I did really enjoy a lot of aspects about this book. I thought it was very magical. I liked the writing, loved like the childhood elements to it. It really felt like nostalgic, even though like we hadn't read that kids book series. I feel like so many of us like had a book series that we can kind of like put into the story that's very nostalgic to us. So I did really like that. There was just one aspect about this book that I could not look past, and it annoyed me so bad, and I just can't believe I had never heard anyone else talk about it. And that's the fact that our main character Lucy was so annoying. She literally drove me insane. I think that like the purpose of some of her actions was to kind of like imitate like a childish kind of essence, but it was not giving that in the way that like Miss Honey gives like the beauty of childhood. It was giving childish in terms of like I'm immature. I just felt like she like never took responsibility for anything. Anytime anyone would try to offer her a solution for her problems, all she wanted to do was tell you why they wouldn't work, even though they all would. She just like wasn't willing to do it. And she also like somehow thought that it was like responsible to try and foster this child who obviously needs stability when she had no stable stable place to live. She lived with like 4 other people. She has no car and she makes like dirt money. And she like still thought it was just horrible that like they wouldn't let her foster him. And it's like, girl, why would they? Like, he needs a stable environment and you have no money. You can't give him a stable environment. It was just like, she just annoyed me to no end. And anytime I was like really enjoying the book and feeling the magic and like feeling the whimsicalness of it, she would just do something that kind of ticked me off. Overall, I would recommend this. Sometimes I feel like I can just kind of like roll my eyes at things that annoy me in books and like get past them. And for whatever reason, I was just in a mood where I could not get past how bad she annoyed me. But I definitely do want to pick up more by Meg Schaefer because I did really like just the writing in this, like the nostalgia, the whimsy. It overall was such a fun story. And I'm glad that I read these books back to back because I think that this is like a good like conversation to have. Then I read How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. When I tell you guys, I ate this book up. I loved this book. I was literally like, no notes. This book is so good. And then I was going through other people's reviews of it once I had finished it. And I saw a lot of people say that like the main character just kind of annoyed them, that she just like made dumb decisions, and that they just like couldn't look past it. And every review that I saw that said that, I was like, yeah, I can see that. And for whatever reason, it did not bother me in this book. And I just feel like that shows like how reading can just differ for so many people, because for whatever reason, like in The Wishing Game, I was so hyper focused on the main character annoying me, and in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Dates, I like could not care less. The main character was a little annoying. So I think that's kind of funny just that I read those back to back. But I don't really know if I want to give you a synopsis of How to Lose a Guy in 10 Dates, just because I went into it completely blind. I honestly kind of thought our main character was going to be like a serial killer. All I knew is that it was like it had like slasher elements and it had rom-com elements. And I feel like that's honestly a great way to go into it. I kind of loved just like following the story and having really no idea what was going to happen. I will say, if you are an audiobook girly like me, I would really recommend the audiobook for this. I tandem read this, so I read it with my eyes and my ears, just like went back and forth between the two. It's only in one POV, but all of the guy dialogue is read by a male narrator. And then like anytime like a door creaks or like a pen falls on the floor, like something spooky happens, we actually get the sound effect and it feels like a whole production. I kind of am curious if the audiobook was done in this way, because the book does focus so much on horror movies and romantic comedy movies. If the idea was kind of to have the audiobook kind of emulate one of those movies. But I just think the audiobook was really, really well done and just made it so much fun. Overall, solid rom-com. I would really recommend this. For whatever reason, it really gave me like Valentine's Day vibes, which I don't really know why. I just feel like it would be like a great Valentine's Day read. Obviously, that's quite far away. I don't think that it takes place at like a certain time of year, but I'll definitely be reading more from this author. I just thought that this was such a well done debut and I really, really enjoyed it. Then I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I did listen to the audiobook for this one. I feel like everyone says like you have to do this on audio, which I honestly feel like I don't have a preference either way. I think I would have probably had a similar reading experience and time if I would have read it with my eyes and not my ears. We are following Ryland. If you don't know what this book is about, you probably do. I feel like it's on everyone's March reading wrap up. We are following Ryland, who wakes up in a spaceship and basically does not remember who he is or why he's there or what he's supposed to be doing. And it is just the most fun sci-fi story. I honestly loved it. It really did make me want to read The Martian by Andy Weir, because I've never seen that movie, so I don't know what happens. I think that would be kind of a fun read. Me and my husband went to see this movie a few days after it came out, and I will say, like, if you have no interest in reading this book, if you're not a sci-fi girly, if you're not an audiobook girly, and like you just like know you wouldn't be able to get through it reading it physically, I would really recommend just going to see the movie. The movie was incredible. I don't know. I can't say that I don't know how a movie will beat it this year, because Dune Part 3 is coming out, and I'm such a Dune girly, and the Hunger Games movie's coming out, so I don't want to say it's like gonna be the best, like my favorite movie of the whole year, but like it honestly, like those movies are gonna have a hard time beating it. It was so well done. I think that it's probably one of my favorite book to movie adaptations. I feel like everything that was taken away from the movie or taken away from the book just made it a better movie, and Ryan Gosling does such an amazing job. Literally no notes. The book is incredible. The movie's incredible. I feel like there's nothing else for me to say. I have nothing else to add. It's all been said. Then I read The Favorite by Lane Fargo. This is also another one that has been on my TBR for so long, and I finally decided to pick it up. I actually kind of like got like the spark to read this again after I saw that it was a Wuthering Heights retelling, which I will say, if you're familiar with the story of Wuthering Heights, if you've read that book, you are gonna kind of be able to know how the story goes, because you obviously know how the story of Wuthering Heights goes. But after I saw that it was a retelling of that, I was like, okay, I kind of do really want to read it. And obviously, like, the Olympics just happened, and it was just like the perfect time, I feel like, to read it. We're following Kat and Heath, and they're ice dancers who have been best friends since they were little, and we kind of just follow them through their a bit of like tumultuous / toxic relationship, and kind of how that like coincides with basically how their relationship kind of coincides with being professional athletes. How did I feel about this book? I honestly don't know. I enjoyed my time reading it, but I will say it felt like a little too Taylor Jenkins Reid to me, to the point of where I was like, they had read Carrie Soto Is Back and kind of ran with it. It reminded me so much of Carrie Soto Is Back, and I personally love that book, so I just think I was a little bit harsher on this one because it reminded me so much of it, and I just wanted something different. I also think that it would have really added if we would have gotten Heath's point of view, just because I feel like once we got to when they were a little bit older, because we do follow quite a long period of time, I could see like his motivations and like why he was making the choices that he was making, and I felt a lot more empathy for him when he was older. But I really struggled to like push through their younger years. I just thought Heath was so annoying, and I just like did not root for them at all, and he just like, I was so over him. And I think that if we would have gotten to kind of see in his brain a little bit, I wouldn't have felt so strongly that way. I think if you like Taylor Jenkins Reid, especially if you like Carrie Soto Is Back, you would really, really enjoy this. Yeah, overall, I think if you're interested in it, if it sounds like something you would enjoy, if you kind of want like the Wuthering Heights vibes but don't want to read Wuthering Heights, I would recommend it, but I don't think it's like gonna change your life. Then I read Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. This also has like an ice skating element, which I just think is so funny that not only did I read 2 books this month that had ice skating elements, but like I also read them back to back. In this, we are following Rue and Eli, I believe. I feel like all of Ali Hazelwood's male main characters basically have the same name. Like if Eli isn't his name, Eli is definitely a different Ali Hazelwood character. Rue works for I guess it would be considered a startup company. They do like some type of tech for like biotech. I don't know. I don't really understand like the sciencey parts of it, but their loan that they got to start the company is being bought out by the company that Eli works for. We kind of have this rivals workplace element in this book. I feel like this book got a lot of negative reviews when it came out. There is a little like blurb at the beginning, or an author's note, where Ali Hazelwood basically says that this book's going to be spicier than her other books, and that because of the way that the characters kind of cope with their problems and kind of navigate their emotions, it's more of like an erotic romance. As someone like who does not like spice and who does skim a lot of spice, I actually really, really enjoyed this book. I thought it was so good. I feel like the spice in this book had more purpose than spice in her other books. Like a lot of those scenes really did show maybe how the 2 characters coped in an unhealthy way, or how they were relying on this physical attraction to kind of mute the other feelings they were having for each other. Overall, I really liked it. I am an Ali Hazelwood stan. I feel like every time I pick up one of her books, you know, maybe it's not like the best book I've ever read, but I always eat it up and I always have such a good time. I think that if you saw a lot of negative reviews and were like, I don't know if I want to read it, I would honestly really recommend picking it up and giving it a try. I really enjoyed it, and I've heard even better things about problematic summer romance, and we meet those characters in this book, so I'm very excited to read that. I'll probably save that for the summer just because of like the vibes. But Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood, such a good book. So that is the last book that I completed in March. Obviously, I touched on Clockwork Prince, which I'm almost finished with. And then the last book we have to talk about was my DNF for the month. I read The Island of Last Things this month. I think I DNF'd it around 70-ish%. We're basically living in the world that we live in, but in a time where this toxic mold kind of took over a lot of like forest and natural land and disrupted ecosystems and is like killing off of all of the animals. And for whatever reason, like it's not toxic to humans, but it's toxic to pretty much like everything else. And we follow our main character Camille, who is a zookeeper on the last zoo on Earth, which is in Alcatraz, which is like an actual island off of California that used to be a prison. And our story starts when Sawyer, another zookeeper who used to work in one of the other zoos that still existed in Paris, which has since been shut down, comes to work at Alcatraz. I feel like this book had so much potential, which just makes me so sad. I feel like I was expecting like a lot of commentary on like our relationship with animals, our relationship with nature, kind of like this viewpoint that we have that like animals are exotic, and like the elitism of being able to see animals in this world when they're so rare. I just thought it was going to have a lot more social commentary than what it did. It was honestly really boring. Every time I thought something was going to happen, nothing came of it. It was so boring. I would highly recommend not looking up the description for this book, because when I tell you guys, there were parts in the description of this book that I still had not gotten to, and I read 70% of the book, and there were still parts in the description that I hadn't gotten to. Yeah, it was just boring. I feel like it didn't have a ton of social commentary. I also think I did a disservice to the book by reading it after Project Hail Mary. I am not the smartest in science, so someone might tell me that every explanation in Project Hail Mary is wrong. However, they made sense to me. This world just made no sense. Like, there was never an explanation on how the fact that we had no like healthy ecosystems, but somehow we had enough food to like feed humans. Like, even if the mold wasn't directly killing us, like, we have no food. How are we eating? It just, like, made no sense. Like, that really bothered me. It was really boring. But I kept pushing through because I heard so many people say that the ending was wild. So I kept trying to push through. And I ended up, it was, like, 10:30 at night. I had 30% of the book left. I was like, I'm gonna finish this tonight. Like, I'm sick of reading this book. I want to finish it. And I was like, you're not even enjoying it. Like, you're literally just forcing yourself to read it because you've gotten this far. Like, just DNF it. So I ended up actually looking up the ending because so many people say that it's like this crazy ending. And when I tell you guys, I'm so glad I'm so glad I DNF'd it after looking up the ending. The ending was just so stupid, and honestly, like, yeah, I don't know. This was not the book for me. I would not recommend it. I think the writing was overall just not super engaging. I think she had a great idea. It just wasn't executed very well. Also, like, the whole book is giving, like, we're gonna get a sapphic romance, and we just never do. We just never do. And I was like, what was the point of that? Like, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for something. Overall, I would not recommend it. So those are all of the books that I read in March, you guys. Let me know what you guys' favorite books of the month are. I have really just been loving like mood reading and just picking up books that people have, like, just hearing about a good book and picking it up right away. I feel like it's been what's really keeping me engaged in reading right now. So I would love to hear what your favorite book of the month was, or if you've read any of these, your opinions on them. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, you guys.